I would love to hear your advice at this stage for other developers or teams who are looking to propose or develop their own EIPs. What would be the key ideas that you would like to communicate for people who would want to write and take the proposal to the final status?
Yeah, there's probably a bit of a function of having been here for, I guess, 4 years now. Sounds like a really long time. It's insane. Actual mechanics of the proposal feel simple now. And I know that like for people coming in, it's still this black box. And so I recommend like step one, understand what an EIP is, understand how to write an EIP, the structure of it. These things are pretty well documented. You have created a lot of content about it. We had a peep and eep about EIP 1. There is EIP 1 to read. Like, I think that information is well covered. It's out there. And that is step one. Like, you have to really understand how to write it and like what they look like. And I recommend looking at some like good EIPs, some EIPs for Pectra, probably some EIPs from Cancun, just to see like what does a finalized EIP look like. But that's like the pre-work. That's the minimum to like come to the table to figure out what you want to do. And so now that you sort of know how EIPs work, I think the thing that isn't less well understood about what to do afterwards is how do you get engaged with the community and the core developers. And that to me is like the really interesting thing these days is like, and the thing that I'm noticing is like the big disconnect, because there are teams that are very sophisticated and have been around for years, and they like definitely know how to write an EIP, but they don't understand like how to get engagement with the EIP. And there's two things that you have to do to get engagement. One is you have to come to the calls, the all core devs call, the breakout calls, if there are like breakouts relevant to this topic that you want to discuss. Because if you're not coming to the calls, there's no way for you to communicate this idea. I think like if you post on Discord in the relevant channels, R&D Discord, that's a good place to start. But like ultimately, we have created this period of time every 2 weeks to discuss and hear the important proposals. And not only will that give you a platform to potentially propose your thing by communicating on the agenda somewhere that you want to propose it, it will also give the proposer an idea of what is being discussed. Like right now, as an outside person, you might have no idea what's going on in these calls, but I can tell you that if you were to come to propose something for Pectra today, it would be hard because we have already like sort of been talking about what is going to go in Pectra since January. So that cycle has sort of ended. And now we're sort of in this like period, this like lower period of time of activity on the call where we're focusing on developing Pectra, getting the testing ready for Pectra and launching it. And then in, I would say 6 months, we're probably going to start again talking about what's going to go in Osaka, this next hard fork. So as a person who wants to contribute, it's really important to sort of understand where in these cycles are we. And we on the core dev and protocol governance side of things are trying to do a better job about making this information more visible, communicating it better, because I don't think that just telling people come to the calls and figure out what's going on is like the best feedback you can give. But we're making baby steps. So I think if you come to the calls, that is the right platform to make a proposal. I mean, you should probably have talked to some people and make sure that this idea is something that makes sense. There's nothing worse than someone coming to the call for the first time to propose their thing and all the core devs just being like, what the fuck is this? Like, where have you been? So do your due diligence and make sure that it's not something that has already been proposed or something that makes that probably has no chance of getting included. And then you have to come to the calls and talk to people. And the core, okay, so I said two things. So one thing was coming to the calls. The second thing is like you have to have something that core devs care about. And that doesn't mean that like what you're doing is not important or what you want is not important. It just means that at this point in time, it's not the most important thing for the core devs. And I think that like history expire is a good thing to illuminate that aspect. Like history expire is important objectively. Everyone agrees upon this. We've agreed upon this for 2-3 years, but it's just not the highest priority element of the core dev like hierarchy. So that for that reason, it just sort of sits there and we don't really talk about it. And then sometimes we talk about it, but we don't really do anything. And like, if you come on and you have a proposal that like sits in that category, then that's just how it is. You can't force the core devs, the client teams to prioritize something if it's not the priority. And that's kind of the beautiful thing about Ethereum is like we have all these people and these teams sort of working together to create this priority map. And it's kind of messy and ugly at times, but that's how we end up deciding like what goes into the fork.
That's the beauty of the biggest decentralized community. I mean, there are so many good proposals. It's very hard to like define which should go in and which should wait. And definitely priority takes priority over there. And then we have to decide on list of proposals. Well, for people who would still be thinking about adding proposals to Petra, my sincere request, please do not. The giraffe is already very tall here. We have 20 plus EIPs, so it's already the biggest fork of Ethereum so far. And we hope that this goes successfully. And this is already on DevNet 1. Hope to have a few more DevNets before it goes on to public and then finally on the mainnet.